r/AskReddit. What unsolved mystery haunts you? A teen went missing in my hometown in the late 90s. Everyone knows he's dead, who killed him, and the likely location where he's buried. The killers have links to organized crime and we all dealt with them in some fashion in our youth, because they controlled the illegal substance trade. Somehow, despite every teenage stoner knowing most of the details, the police were never able to do anything. A couple years ago I saw what had to be his family's car at the video store. They still had a missing poster of him in their back window, except nobody has looked for this guy in nearly 2 decades. That bothers me. I have a locket that belonged to my aunt. She died at 98 and was very weird about her life. Didn't answer many questions, etc. Anyways, inside the locket is pictures of 2 little boys. I have no idea who they are or where it came from and no one in the family knows. She would wear the thing every day though. It still bothers me not knowing. In 1970, a group of hikers came across the body of a woman in the middle of Icicle Valley in Norway. Around her were bottles of liquor, sleeping pills and nearly incinerated passports. Additionally, her fingerprints were sanded off. She was later linked to some suitcases found at a train station, but the labels in her clothes had all been removed. They also found a diary with coded entries. Later investigation revealed that she had traveled throughout Europe under false names, spoke multiple languages, and switched hotels frequently. Her identity has never been discovered, but the most common theory is that the Icicle woman, as she's come to be known for, was a spy of some sort. My great uncle. Story goes that back in the 1930s, at the age of 15, he suffered a knee injury and was taken to the nearest town in rural southern Colorado for surgery. He was given too much ether and never woke up. I'd always known the story, and he was named after my great-grandfather. The story had slipped my mind until recently, when I was doing research on my family tree and was filling in my grandmother's siblings, all 12 of them. I found a Daniel Martinez, and every descriptor linked him to my grandmother, including the parents' names, birth dates, everything. I added him to my family tree and moved on. I was talking to my grandmother a couple days later, telling her what I had found, and that her brother Daniel had been buried in Stockton in 2001, leaving behind 4 kids, just to make sure everything lined up. She choked up and said that, no, he died when he was 15, back in the late 1930s. I went through all the information, but she still can't believe that it's him, and not only that, but that he had lived and died less than 30 minutes from my grandmother in the Bay Area. We can't figure out what happened, as she is adamant that he had died in the 1930s. I want to pursue it, but I don't think she can handle whatever information I find regarding her brother, and if he had truly been alive all those years. I'm from Springfield, Missouri, and 3 women, a mom, her daughter, and her daughter's friend, went missing in 1992, dubbed the Springfield 3. There really isn't much evidence, and they seem to have just vanished without a trace. There are theories out there, but I'm not too familiar with them. Every 5 years or so some breaking news comes up, but it never turns out to be anything. I was only 4 when it happened, but I remember there being missing posters, and eventually billboards for years. I want to say probably until 1999 or so. The mom who lost her daughter still lives in the community. Very sad. The disappearance of Asher Degree. She was 9 years old and last seen in the extremely early hours of the morning, fully dressed and without a raincoat or any protective clothing. 2 separate drivers spotted her, but after that she was never seen again. Eventually the backpack she'd been carrying was found, wrapped in a double layer of black garbage bags. Her body has never been found. There are no leads, and no one has any idea what happened to her. What actually happened to George Mallory and Andrew Irvine, both of whom, as a team, attempted to summit Mount Everest in 1924. Had they succeeded, they would have been the first to do so. Mallory's body was found in 1999, but there was no trace of the camera or the photo of his wife that he carried with him. He had promised to leave her photo on the summit. The photo, the camera, and Andrew Irvine's body have never been found, even though there is a report of a body matching his description being spotted in a cave. Edmund Hillary summited Mount Everest 29 years later. Who the Zodiac Killer was. Serial killers fascinate me, and he's probably my favorite. Taunting the police and media, the cryptic codes, the costume he only wore the one time, making sure he could prove he was the one responsible for at least a couple of them, all of it. The man from Taured. Businessman shows up in Japan in the 50s, has a passport showing the many places he has visited on business trips, has currency from many countries, including his own. All this is normal, except that his home country doesn't exist. He claims that he is from Taured, a small country that is occupied by Andorra. He's shocked and baffled, as are the officers at the airport. They hold him overnight, but come morning, he and all of his belongings have vanished. Most Americans have at least heard of the Nation of Islam, but very few have heard of its founder, Wale Sfard Muhammad. That may be because there is absolutely nothing known about him. He appeared in 1930 in Detroit, founded this religious movement of at the time about 3,000 people, and then vanished in 1934. That is pretty much the entirety of what is known about him. Also strange is that despite the movement's association with black Americans, Muhammad was not black. There are photos of him you can find online, but his ethnicity is itself a complete mystery. Based on the picture, some have suggested a mix of Caucasian, possibly Mediterranean, and Central Asian. Cicada 3301, an enigmatic organization that on 4 occasions has posted a set of complex puzzles and alternate reality games to recruit codebreakers from the public. The Cicada 3301 clues have spanned many different communication media, including internet, telephone, original music, bootable Linux CDs, digital images, physical paper signs, and pages of unpublished cryptic books. In addition to using many varying techniques to encrypt, encode or hide data, these clues also have reference to a wide variety of books, poetry, artwork and music. Each clue has been signed by the same NuPG private key to confirm authenticity. Nobody was reported to finish the puzzles and nobody has taken credit for it. Who in the hell my great aunt married? He vanished without a trace the day after her funeral. There is no record of anyone with his full name anywhere in the Boston area. There is no record of him working anywhere he claimed to work. The house, bank accounts, cars, boat, and all possessions were only in her name. They traveled worldwide often, had shit tons of money, and pictures with government officials and celebrities from the early 50s through late 70s. We have pictures of him at family events. All identifying documents were removed from the home. We also can find no trace of his brother's family or biological son. It's like they vanished off the face of the earth. When she died in 1996, he was 74 then. Who was he? What was before the Big Bang or the beginning of anything? That seriously haunts me. If there is a god, what created him and so on? The idea of just existing is troublesome for me. I'm probably too late for the party, but I will write my part. My favorite is the Eerie and More lighthouse mystery. Short briefing. In 1900, the only souls who lived on the Scottish island of Eerie and More were 3 lighthouse keepers. The day after Christmas, a supply ship came to the island. To the surprise of the crew, the lighthouse keepers were not waiting at the small dock on the island. After blowing the horn of the ship and launch a flare, still no activity on the island. A replacement lighthouse keeper named Joseph Moore was finally sent to investigate. As he climbed the narrow stairs leading to the lighthouse, Moore recalled being struck with a feeling of nameless dread. As he approached the door, he saw that it was locked. Treading carefully inside, he also realized that 2 of the 3 waterproof jackets that usually remain in the room were not. Upon reaching the kitchen, he found the remains of a meal and a chair lying on the floor. The kitchen clock had stopped working. The lighthouse keepers were nowhere. Further investigation revealed the disturbing entries in the register of the lighthouse. The entry of December 12th was written by a guard named Thomas Marshall. In it, Marshall said that the island had been hit by severe winds, worse than anything he had experienced in his career. Although the lighthouse was strong enough to survive any storm, Marshall wrote that the chief guardian, James Duckett, was very quiet. The 3rd guard, William MacArthur, was an experienced sailor and a famous fighter. The registry entry ends by noting that he had been crying. Further, he reported that the storm continued to rage for a few days. Being safe in the lighthouse, the 3 men had begun to pray. The last entry read, "The storm ended, calm sea. God is above all." Although the lighthouse was visible from the nearby island of Lewis, no storm was reported in Eerie and Moore Island during the days specified in the log entry. Thank you for watching. Like the video and comment if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel and follow on Twitter and Reddit from the links in the description to keep up with updates and new videos.